Moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Oliver that council reconvene in open session at 4:06 p.m. Those in favor? Thank you. We have come out of closed session. I said I thought a half an hour. I guess I was only out a half an hour. So we discussed a personnel matter in the closed session, and direction was given to staff. The matter regarding Norfolk County property, I want to do a report on that. So unfortunately, I have to report this, but we have been notified by our staff that after a consultant engineering company has examined the Talbot Street Arena, that the cement steps, or the cement tiers, as I call them, that support the spectator seating, it is deemed to be unsafe for the public to be sitting in the spectator area of the Talbot Gardens Arena. There will be a press release issued in the morning. Our concern for closing the viewing area at the Talbot Gardens is certainly that we are concerned for public safety. I want to thank staff for bringing this forward in a quick manner. I want to further say that we have been assured by staff that all of the events that are scheduled at the arena will be accommodated in some form or manner. We have other rinks that certainly are in the nearby if there are tournaments involved, and also want to say that the viewing area up by the concession at the east end of the arena will certainly accommodate some viewing of the activities on the ice. Mr. Cridlin and Mr. Shoemaker, thank you. Bill, is there anything that you want to add at this point?
Through the Mayor, I think you covered most of the bases, but just to push forward the fact that staff will do whatever they can to work with user groups, keep the information flowing for the rescheduling, and make it as easy as a transition as we can.
Thank you very much. Any comments from council on this? Again, the arena is functional as far as the ice surface, the player's box, the timekeeper penalty box, but the cement work that supports the public seating of the Talbot Gardens is underneath the structure is showing its wear and tear, and has been deemed by our consultants as being a safety issue. So we will staff will move quickly as possible on this. Effective immediately, that area of Talbot Gardens will be off limits to the public. Councillor Black?
Just wondering if it's worth saying a little bit further for those people that are involved in the rehabilitation. I believe it was back in '93, if my memory is correct, but around that time.
It's that time.
And, you know, the seating area was repoured, but over top of the existing area. And what has happened, without anyone's knowledge, is that those areas were underneath were sealed off, and they started to spald underneath. But everything on top of it was actually new. So anybody thinking, well, we did have a new arena back then. We had a whole new roof and the sides and pillars, and even the seating area was lifted up, but it's the underneath which was not accessible and not ventilated that's caused this problem.
Thank you. And again, Todd and Bill, thank you very much. And Shelley, thank you. Let's move on with our agenda. I am on item 6, which is the adoption and correction of council meeting minutes. The regular council meeting minutes 2 weeks ago, February the 14th, are listed on page 5 to 14. Any comments or concerns with the way they are printed? I hear none. I will declare them adopted as printed. I will now go on to the reports of committees. It's been moved on page 15. It's been moved by Councillor Geisen, seconded by Councillor Wells, that the minutes of the council and committee meeting dated February the 21st, 2017 be approved as presented, aside from the amended resolution number 18, which is pulled and it will be further discussed. Any questions or comments on the resolution dealing with the February 21st CIC meeting minutes? Everything is in order to discuss except Resolution 18. We'll deal with that shortly. If not, those in favor? Carried, thank you. No, 18. Do you have it here? It's not this one, is it? Is it 18? Economic development? No. Well, that's the advisory. Oh, yes. Okay. I do not have a mover for Resolution 18 as printed. Councillor Black, thank you. Councillor Black has moved and Councillor Oliver seconded that staff report DCS 1750, the establishment of the Planning Advisory Committee, Small Growth for Our Communities Acts 2015. This is Bill 73, amendments to the Planning Act be received as information, and that a Planning Advisory Committee be established, and that the Planning Advisory Committee terms of reference be approved and adopted by council bylaw, and further that the terms of reference for the Planning Advisory Committee be reviewed with council after 1 year. Discussion on this resolution. Councillor Black?
Well, certainly it's something that has been imposed upon us by the province. It's mandated. We have no say in this unless we go to the planning jail. And I think it's Councillor Geisens is going to represent us there.
He did. He said he would.
He said he would, and he'll get fed properly. And, yeah, it is here. We must deal with it. I'm hoping that, and I hear all the time, the public wants to be involved in planning, and I guess this is just another extension, another opportunity for the public to be involved, and yet there will be no determinations and no direction, some recommendations, and that's all, some advice, and that's all. Council still has the ultimate decision-making authority. So I guess I'm going to look at it in a positive light, and maybe it will give a different perspective for me to listen to some of the advice of just the general public on the planning issues. Thank you.
I thank you for that, Councillor Black. Any further discussion? Councillor Oliver, then Geisens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this resolution. I know we had a lot of debate when this was first brought forward to us by staff, and none of us, including myself, were keen on the idea of potentially creating another layer, if you like, of review and consideration. I won't use the word the phrase red tape, but nonetheless that may creep into it. I think Councillor Brunton's amendment that means we're going to review these terms of reference within 1 year is a good one, because if we find it's not working, we're either getting the wrong kind of advice or no advice, or it's causing delays to the process, and I'm sure applicants will be telling us if this particular decision is going to create more delays than they feel they experience at times now. We will have the chance to review it. And we saw what some of our other neighboring municipalities have done. I agree with Councillor Black. We have no choice but to do something. And I think we've now built enough safeguards into it for ourselves as council that we can review this and make changes if changes are necessary within a year. So I will support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Geisens, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will not be supporting the Resolution 18. I have part of it, but here we are. We have planners. We have an EAC committee. We have an economic development committee. How many people are we really going to need to get this done? Number one, why have our planning staff it'll take either 5 hours, 3 hours a month, or whatever that it's going to take for these committees to come together, and I'm sure that the planning staff will have to look after it. It may work for Toronto and all the bigger cities, but why do we need more committees? I'm sorry, you can say whatever you want, but red tape is part of this, and it's going to cost, regardless of whether it's an hour or 10 hours, that a month or whatever. Why can the province come along and say this is good for you without having some come back or whatever, something come back from the province and ask us what we want to do, not shove it down our throats. And I'm sorry, I think what we need to do is look and say to the province, sorry, we're not wanting it. I don't know what you have before you, but what I would be willing to pass is that staff report DSC 17-15 establishment of the Planning Advisory Committee Small Growth for Our Communities Act 2015 Bill 73 amendment to the Planning Act be received as information, period. That's what I'm hoping that what I would make a motion that if the other one doesn't pass or whatever. To me, I think it's time that we send a message that's saying we're not always going to do what the province says unless they're working with us. And isn't that what it's supposed to be about? So I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for letting me talk. And if I have to go to jail, I'm going to get 3 good deals.
I'm sure you wanted to leave your microphone on for those last few comments. You're very good. Councillor Columbus, please.
Well, you know, some of what Councillor Geisens is saying is correct. You know, like the Ontario government, when they plopped solar farms, I think we got 4 of them, big acreages, wind farms, you know, they didn't run it by a planning advisory committee, but we've got to run all our applications through this process. So I just wonder what the province would do if we did just receive it as information. Anybody have a handle on that? Like, just receive it as information, as Councillor Geisens has mentioned, and see what where the repercussions are.
Pam, dare you suggest what may happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Columbus, we had a brief chat with our county solicitor in that regard. And again, the answer that he provided us is that it's required, period. So we have no idea at this time if that's what you choose to do, what would happen.
Thank you. Pam, while I have you, I just for clarification for me, I believe it might even been Matt that was asked by someone on council that it's perceived that this advisory committee will not hold up and not delay applications coming to this council in the public meeting format. Do you wish to just, I think that was mentioned.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We've looked at it very detailed in our process of circulation and draft reports and through to the clerk's office, and we feel that we can provide these meetings monthly in-house during that time frame. So there will be no holdup if this is the route council chooses.
Thank you very much. Anything further on this motion, Councillor Brunton?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm willing to go to jail with Councillor Geisens. I really think that he's absolutely correct. You know, the way I look at the province divided into 2 pieces. There's Toronto and then there's us in the rural. And they seem to ram things down our throat all the time. They pass bills every session down there. And you can't tell, I don't know what half of them are. Like they're in the books, they go on forever and ever. But I'm willing to tell them we're not interested right now. But if they do come back to us, I think we got to look at, let's give it to the ECDEV committee. They got nothing to do anyways. I sat in that committee for 2 years. We did absolutely nothing, and I don't mind saying it. We did get into supplying some grant information to organizations. Whoopee-doo. You know, there's a planner on that committee. There's a lot of good people on that committee that are just anxious to do something for the community. We put good people on that committee. After a while, they leave. They get fed up. So I'm willing to take a stand on it with Councillor Geisens and anybody else who wants to support it. And if they come back and say we're going to jail, well, so be it. Maybe we'll have to look at another way. But to form a separate liaison committee, we got lots of committees, and maybe they'd be thrilled to get something to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further to speak to the motion?
Could you read the motion that
You've read a quarter of it already. If you don't want to read the rest of it, I'll read it again if you like. that this staff report, DCS 1715, first of all, be received as information, and that a planning advisory committee be established, and that the planning advisory committee terms of reference be approved and adopted by council by law, and further that the terms of reference for the planning advisory committee be reviewed with council after 1 year. Okay? I'm going to call the question then. Those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. That is defeated. Councillor Geisens?
Like I said earlier, I am prepared to put that forward again, that staff report DCS, and I don't have to read it again. I'm sure you have it in front of you as well, so that we would just simply acknowledge that as information. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Geisens has made the motion to receive the report as information. Do I have a seconder for his motion? Councillor Height has seconded to receive as information. Any discussion on it? Councillor Oliver, then Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the direction of council on the previous motion, I may very well support this, but I think for us to simply receive the report as information and not take any action is not acceptable. That's not showing leadership from council. So I'm going to suggest an amendment, Mr. Mayor, if I could. This would be an additional phrase to the motion.
Your amendment's in order.
My amendment would be, and further, that staff be directed to provide a revised set of terms of reference for a planning advisory committee. So in other words, we're receiving the report. We're not simply putting our heads in the sand and saying we're not going to do anything. We have told staff what they have proposed to date is not acceptable. Bring us a set of terms of reference based on the discussion that we've had around the table, perhaps assigning the role to an existing committee, more clearly defining what their role will and will not be, and then bring that back to council. So that is my amendment. I'll see if I can get a seconder.
Councillor Wells? Okay, and I have noted here that your amendment is that staff be directed to provide a revised term of reference for the Planning Advisory Committee to come back, and I'm just going to get it from the clerk so that I'll see how he's got it worded. He has written the amendment that staff be directed to provide a revised set of terms of reference to fulfill the role of a planning advisory committee. You okay with that? And amendment has been moved by Oliver and seconded by Wells. Any further discussion on this amendment to Councillor Geisen's motion? If not, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? The amendment is defeated. Back to the motion of Councillor Geisens and his motion. I'm trying to recall. Did I have a seconder for that? I don't believe. Councillor Height seconded it. Yes, pardon me. Pardon me. Yes, okay. I wrote it down on the other. So that, just to review, again, Geisens has moved. Height has seconded that the report DCS 1715 be received as information. Councillor Sonnenberg, then Black.
I know it's too late, but maybe we should have had a recorded vote so that when the police come, the proper people go to jail.
I know who. I know.
You know?
I know. And it won't be you or I. Any other discussion, Councillor Black, on this motion?
Well, I think, I know the councillors think this is a waste of time, but to actually have the committee, but I think it's a waste of time to fight the province on such a petty matter. If we're going to go to battle with the province, and I don't mind, I'd love to go to the battle with the province on a bigger issue, like the money that they send us or the infrastructure that they're not providing us. If we're going to go to battle let's pick our battles and something much larger, and I'd gladly fight for a bigger issue and more money than something as small as this. And I think, question through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, will the province be informed of our intransigence?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as you know, this is legislation, so the province will indeed find out. Again, we're not sure the direction.
Well, I think maybe you better give them a call tomorrow, so we might as well just get that right out of the way real
She
quick.
has her cell phone out already. Any other discussion? Okay, motion by Geisens and Height to receive as information. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? 5, and there's 4 opposed. That is carried. I only have one comment. I don't disagree with the frustration and the comments about more red tape, more. I'll tell you, I have a concern. I hope we're not going to start going against other mandatory provisions of the Planning Act, because we just did. The Planning Act is a pretty important piece of legislation in my mind. So stay tuned. We have spoken. Thank you. Let's move on. You need that one? I'm on page 27, moved by Geisen, seconded by Height, that the minutes of the Norfolk Environmental Advisory Committee dated December the 12th, 2016, be received as information. Oh, you want it on 8B? Yeah. I'm sorry. No? You're right, and you know what? I wrote it down under 9B, so we will do these as 2, one after the other. Yeah, thank you. You're correct. You said you typed 8B, and I wrote it under as 9B. Okay, back to the December 12th Environmental Advisory Committee. Any discussion there? Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm looking at the second page, number 5, under new business, 241 and 243 Town Line Street in St. Williams. They were asking for a scoped EIS, and I'm just curious as what's the trigger to send people off into this committee and to have this scoped EIS done or waived or whatever it is? I know this property very well. It's right in St. Williams. I'm curious that would trigger this.
Pam,
Through
please.
you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Height. There are policies in the official plan review that require, they clearly outline when an environmental impact study is required. So these developments would fall under that policy. But we recognize that in some cases, for instance, as an example, the woodlots may not be as significant as they appear to be in our mapping. So when that happens, we provide the opportunity for a scoped EIS for some information to come forward to NEAC. They also have waived EISs in the past that are not considered to be of significant nature at all. We are working through our official plan review, and we've asked that outside of the official plan review that we bring these policies forward to council quicker than the official plan review to provide some more opportunities and flexibility in regard to environmental impact studies. But in this case, for this specific one, information was brought forward and it was deemed that only a small amount or scoped environmental impact study was required.
I guess my concern with this is in the hamlet area, and we're going to do environmental impact assessments. Like, the concerning part here is this property was just neglected. So are we going to do environmental impact assessments for every time somebody's lawn gets over 10 inches, 12 inches, they're not cutting the grass? That's what this property is. And for this owner to have to come to this committee, it just seems like a real slow process for a guy who wants to actually clean up the yard. There isn't a significant forest near this property, really. So,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with your general statements, and that's why we're asking that the official plan review come to council earlier than the official plan amendment in this regard come to council before the official plan review.
okay, thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Columbus, please.
Yes, on that same subject, Mr. Mayor, if in fact this gentleman who owns this property wanted to cut down some of these trees, just to get rid of them, maybe they're messy or something, still alive but messy, would he have to get permission from NEAC or our bylaw people or somebody to cut down a tree on private property in his backyard?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that wouldn't be NEAC's responsibility or role. NEAC only looks at it when a future development, and that could include lot line changes, comes forward. I'm not sure if Mr. Cridland has anything to add.
All I would have to add is the county bylaw presently enforced is on private public property and woodlands which are a certain acreage. Single trees are not protected by the county bylaw that I'm aware of.
Right, so he could have removed these trees completely and then he wouldn't have to go by the drip line, right? And there'd be nothing happening to
That I'm not sure through a CSD standard, yes, he probably could unless they were a species at risk of cucumber magnolia or something like that.
Why worry so much about the drip line if in fact the person could have actually removed the trees? I can't fathom why it's like that.
Anything further on these minutes? If not, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Height, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that the minutes of the special council and committee meeting of February the 27th, 2017 be adopted as presented, and that's the special meeting we held yesterday morning on the county manager recruitment. Discussion, those in favor? Thank you. Page 31, I have a motion by Councillor Height and seconded by Councillor Geisens that the minutes of the Economic Development Advisory Board dated January 23rd, 2017, that these minutes be received as information. Any discussion on these minutes? Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. As you look at these minutes, you'll see there's not a whole lot of meat for this committee to chew on, and I went to the meeting last night as well, and there wasn't a whole lot, so I'll offer you guys my bailout service. Should we get in trouble from the province for not having that planning advisory committee, we can certainly throw it over to my committee here, and we'll take care of you guys.
You have lots of time.
Give time for Andy to bail you out.
Really appreciate that offer. Those in favor of adopting these minutes? Thank you. It's carried. And our last committee report is the Port Dover Harbor Museum minutes of January the 9th, 27, and Wells has moved, Oliver has seconded that these minutes be received as information. They begin on page 35. Any questions or comments on these minutes? Hearing none, those that are in favor, please. That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of staff reports, I think, that are carryover from last week. Our first staff report is on page 38 of the agenda. This is staff report EBS 17-14. This is the Ministry of Transportation expansion of a license plate denial, making Ontario roads a safer act. And I know that Shelley, you're going to be giving this report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an update to Council on the MTO expansion of license plate denial initiatives. Municipalities, as Council knows, has the responsibility to enforce and collect fines as outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. Norfolk County is mandated to ensure consistent collection and enforcement of fines, regardless of their age. Fines are never purged from the court system unless they are paid or the defendant is deceased. Fines are not subject to any statute of limitations. As of December 31st, 2016, there were $5.93 billion in outstanding POA fines across the province, and $5.93 million in outstanding POA fines for Norfolk County, and across the province there were $1.6 billion in outstanding fines. The primary objective of the Making Ontario's Roads Safer Act 2015 was to improve road safety, improve the 407 East Act, and to enhance the collection of defaulted provincial offences fines. On January 16th, the MTO issued a regulatory registry posting where the MTO is seeking input into their proposed regulatory changes, which will, 1, apply license plate denial retrospectively to all outstanding driving-related fines over the last 7 years, and exempt jointly owned vehicles, vehicles that are registered in the name of 2 or more persons, and vehicles registered to a company from the application of plate denial. The Municipal Court Managers Association of Ontario, MCMA, has conducted a detailed review of the proposed regulations and has provided comments as outlined in Appendix B. Staff concurs with the proposed regulations and the implementation of plate denial, which will provide another means of collections for municipalities. The comments provided by MCMA does express some concerns with the exclusions that have been proposed, including the exemption of jointly owned vehicles and the limitation period of 7 years. However, staff were encouraged by the proposed regulations and are seeking Council's approval to support the response from the MCMA, and further that the Mayor be authorized to send a letter to both the Ministry of Attorney General and the Ministry of Transportation supporting further enhancement to municipal collections of defaulted POA fines. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Broughton, questions on this report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Yeah, my question, I guess, to you, to Shelley, is why just the 7 years?
Through the Mayor, that's one of the concerns that both MCMA and staff have. That was a number that the MTO has proposed. We are meeting through our association with the Ministry of Attorney General, and this subject matter will be discussed at our April meeting. I think they have realized some of the concerns that have been expressed by member municipalities of the 7-year period, because certainly we have fines that are much older than that. And certainly from a collection standpoint, we don't understand why it's just been limited to 7 years.
So, but what you're saying is if we just go back 7 years, we're looking at 1.8?
Through the Mayor, that's correct. If we go back 7 years, we did some initial analysis, and I think it's 1.4 million and about 1,049 fines that fall into this category of possible license plate denial.
So if we go back in perpetuity for us, it'd be 5.9, right?
That's correct.
Okay. It's interesting.
But I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, sorry about that. Through Mr. Mayor, our total fines are 5.9, but not all of them fall into license plate denial. We'd have to do further analysis.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I guess this would be to Shelley. Shelley, when this responsibility was transferred over to the county for collection, was it at that time, if I remember correctly, in my mind, as most of you know, is not too good, but it was going to be a great source of revenue for the county. Has that worked out well for the county or not?
Through the Mayor, our responsibilities are to certainly collect and administer the fine process. Our revenue varies depending on the number of fines that are imposed. So certainly we can't control sort of the enforcement process, because that's up to our enforcement agencies to ensure safe community, and if there's law-abiding citizens, then there's no tickets to issue. Certainly it does generate revenue for the county. It does have a net revenue to the tax levy, but that's not the goal. The goal is to ensure a safe community through the enforcement of provincial offences and to administer that process.
Again, if I heard you correctly, it does generate revenue for the county?
Through the mayor, yes. During the 2017 budget deliberations, council approved a revenue line of $1,100,000 of revenue that's generated.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize to staff for having my back to them, but I want to be able to refer to a couple of things in the report. Shelley, I understood what you were saying in response to Councillor Brunton, and looking at page 3 of the report at the very top, where it talks about once this new regulation goes into effect, it could mean up to approximately $1.4 million of collectible outstanding fines that under the old regulation are not likely collectible. Is that essentially true?
Through the mayor, essentially that is correct. What happens with that $1.4 million or that 1,050 charges is they'll fall into license plate denial. And so now we can deny license plate renewal, and hopefully through that process, they'll come and pay their fine.
Right. And when we were doing our 2017 operating budget, I know we had some discussion about this, and I recall council directed staff to anticipate an additional $100,000, I think, in revenue under these new rules. Am I remembering that correctly?
Through the mayor, that is essentially correct. We based that additional $100,000 of revenue based on our actuals from 2016. So we were able to work on some collection strategies that generated a little bit more revenue in 2016. So we estimated a similar level of revenue for 2017.
Okay. And then in other words, and in my simplistic way here, I'm saying in the report it says with this new rule we'll have access to about 1.4 million outstanding fines that we have had trouble collecting before. All we have assumed in our budget this year is another $100,000 in revenue out of the 1.4 million. So there's still potentially upwards of $1.3 million given this new rule. If people want their license plate renewed, they're going to have to come in and pay the fine, and that could result in substantially more than the $100,000 we've assumed for this budget year. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right. Well, it's tough to be, it's unpleasant to be hard on the offenders. What is the expression? They did the crime, they've got to pay the fine or do the time or whatever it is. So we'll see what happens, Mr. Mayor. And I think we did ask staff to monitor over the course of the year to what extent this new regulation does free up some of that remaining 1.3 million, and I hope they will do that for us. Thank you.
Councillor Brunton?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Luke. Just on another note, Shelley, are we using a collection agency now trying to recover some of this?
Through the mayor, that is correct, Councillor Brunton. We engaged 2 collection agencies in the last contract. Their fees range from 13% to 24% of collection agency fee costs. And the reason we have 2 collection agencies is we make them compete for our business. So we have primary files and secondary files, and the better return you have for us, the more files we give you to collect. So they're sort of in a competitive market trying to get all of our collection agency files. However, we don't collect as much money through collection agencies as we do with our own internal collection staff. And we are preparing a report to council on our collection strategies, and that should come before council end of April, beginning of May. And we have a whole bunch of different programs that we do internally, and we end up actually collecting more through our own initiatives with staff than we do through the collection agencies.
I'm going to get to my question now. My question is, if we go after this legislation for the 1.4 million, are we in breach of any kind of contract with these collection agencies? Do we still have to pay them? Or you mentioned where you hand them over files, so do they have a lot of files now that they're working on? And if so, I assume we're not going to make the total of 1.4. We're going to pay a premium to these collection agencies even if the people pay their fine. Is that correct?
Through
No?
the mayor, no, there's no cost to the county for the collection agency. Once we turn a file over to the collection agency, the individual has to pay that fee on top of their fine. So there's no cost to the county for that. However, you raise a good question about, are we going to get additional fines, or is the collection agency going to get additional fines? What this piece of legislation does to us is it gives us another avenue that we can actually suspend a driver's license plate, and so it's going to enforce sort of, you can't renew your license plate, so come in and pay. So it's going to give us a little bit more teeth to the enforcement of paying their fines.
So right now, when a collection agency's out there, they actually collect the money? And then they say, okay, we've collected on this file, here's your money less 13% or whatever their fee is. Is that how it works now?
That's correct.
So I guess that what I'm trying to determine is, if they've got a file now that they're trying to collect on, but that person walks in under license plate renewal and pays their fine, can they claim 13% or whatever the amount is?
No,
No?
no, they can't.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Geisens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I heard you say something about last year we collected somewhere around $1 million. What I didn't hear is how much is it costing us?
Through the mayor, I don't have that budget figure in front of me. I want to say it is about $400,000 of net revenue that's generated. Expenses less.
So we're actually coming out as $400,000?
As a loose number through the mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So, certainly costs money to collect fines.
And I'm not against this, by the way.
No, well, I'm glad yeah. It's not under the Planning Act, by the way, so you're okay. Moved by Councillor Geisen, seconded by Councillor Height, that staff report EBS 1714, the Ministry of Transportation's expansion of license plate denial, making Ontario roads safer act, that we receive it as information, and that Norfolk County support the response from the Municipal Court Managers Association regarding the MTO's proposed Making Ontario's Roads Safer Act, and further that the mayor be authorized to send a letter to the Ministry of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Transportation supporting further enhancement to municipal collection of defaulted POA fines. Any further discussion on the motion? Those in favor? Carried. Our other report this evening is EBS 1701, page 49 of your hard agenda. This is the Delegated Purchasing Authority activity of July the 1st, 2016 to December the 31st, 2016. Shelley, are you as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report has been prepared to advise Council of the Delegated Purchasing Authority activity that has occurred for the period of July 1st, 2016 to the end of December 31st, 2016. Council has delegated its authority to general managers to award formal bid documents with purchase amounts between $50,000 and $250,000 when the following criteria are met. It is the lowest tender meeting specifications or the lowest proposal meeting the price per point methodology, and the scope of the project has not changed from what was approved by Council, and the amount of the bid plus all related costs is within the approved budget allocations, and it is not financed by debentures. If any of the criteria is not met, a report to Council is required for approval. In addition, Council further delegated its authority to the County Manager during Council's summer recess. Attachment A to the report outlines all of the purchasing activity that have met the conditions for delegated purchasing authority as reported by staff in the required bid award summary form. Staff is recommending that the report be received as information.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions to staff on this? Go ahead, Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to staff. On the grid form that you have, page 52 of 100 on our agenda, the second one is a retaining wall replacement. This was a bid type, an informal bid type, so I assume somebody just called these people to ask them to bid on this particular item?
Through the mayor, that would be correct. It was an informal that was completed, but it is a Public Works bid file, so I'm sure Ms. Robinson has details on it.
Through the mayor to council, yes, it is informal. So we received 3 quotes from 3 different companies to do that, and this is for more than one retaining wall.
It says bids received 1, singular.
Correct. We recalled several people, and they were not interested in doing the work.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess you had mentioned in the purchasing policy or the exemption of policy that all of these works can be approved by staff if debentures are not required. We'll be addressing debentures a very short time from now, and some of these projects could very well end up being debenture. Yet it's sitting in a reserve so staff can get the approvals done, but in the end they'll have to be debenture.
Through the mayor, I'll ask Mr. Ford to comment. I believe the reason that the debenture is excluded from the delegation of purchasing authority is we require a specific resolution of council to proceed with the debenture, but I'll ask Mr. Ford to speak to that.
John. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These projects that have been presented and approved by staff, none of them in the capital plan were planned to be funded from debentures. The only time that we would have debentures issued, like we approved in August, for things that forced a deficit in the reserve fund, we would deal with those as a separate matter with council. And get approval from council to include those in the issue. But this is intended to be where council has already approved that they be funded from the reserve. We proceed that way. If the reserve has a deficit, we treat that as a funding issue, not as a capital project approval issue.
Okay, so the staff can continue to allow the approvals and we'll deal with the financing side of it later.
I would say a combination of myself, finance staff, and council will deal with that, the requirement to have debentures issued in those occurrences where we don't have funds in the reserve fund to fund that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And my last question is, I know my colleague Councillor Oliver and I are waiting impatiently for a review of the purchasing policy. Very impatiently at this point. Do we have a deadline when that'll be coming back to us?
Through the mayor, I believe that council or staff issued an information memo to council advising them that it would be here before summer recess. We're currently in the process of implementing our first department for the Paramount electronic purchase order system. We go live April 3rd, so staff have been dedicating their resources in that area, and then we'll get that purchasing policy to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. My question, I'm not sure if it's to Shelley or Lee, but on page 52 also, what is this $160,000 stormwater management cleanout? Where is that? Somebody answer that, Lee, maybe?
Somerset Phase 5?
Yes. 160 grand. Is that one stormwater pond or what is
That's
it?
the Sea Waves development bid.
Yes, it is one pond that was cleaned out.
Where is it?
I'm going to actually look to Pam for that, where the location. I wasn't here when that was developed, so I'm not familiar with the name. I know
Number 7, yeah, I don't know number 7.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out.
It's in the summer. It was in this what they're calling the Somerset Development Phase 5. But I'm not. I apologize. I don't know where the Somerset development is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know either right offhand, but we can get that information.
We can get
to
that
you.
for you.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for one pond to clean out, I would think. But anyways, I'll wait for that. My other question is the third one down, the trackless, it looks like I call them trackless vehicles. You rent 4 of them. I take they're for snow removal or cleaning, or is that what they're for? $129,000 on a rental. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those are the ones that do a lot of our sidewalk work in the winter.
And is that, I heard Shelley say, that is only for part of the year?
Through the mayor, yes, this report is, it's given to council semi-annually, so we report January to the end of June, and then we report July to December. So you've already received one report last year for the beginning of the year.
So is it safe to say that that price has doubled?
Through the mayor, that is the total cost of that particular contract. We only report on each of the contracts that are awarded in that time period.
So that's what I'm saying. I know the winter comes at the start and the end, so that is for a full season, isn't it?
That's correct.
Okay. And the only other one is that I see on there, and then I know this was last summer, Cocoa Paving, $300,000 of an $800,000 contract. Any reason, Lee, that you terminated that at the stoplights and didn't go to the Ireland Road?
Through the mayor to council, yes, we did. We terminated it at Ireland, we terminated it where we did because of the ongoing saga with the traffic signals at Donnelly. We didn't want to resurface the road, and then with the development that was being proposed on the north side of the Queensway there, until such time as that development moves a little bit further forward, we weren't sure what was going to happen with the traffic signals, and we didn't want to place asphalt and 2 years later have to remove it when the development took place.
Yeah, just on a note, if my recollection is that the conduits are all in at Ireland and Highway 3, at least they were in at the time that intersection was rebuilt last, so I would hope they wouldn't tear it up. So I'll leave it with you. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Just to help Councillor Brenton out, the Somerset Stormwater Pond is in between Newport and Don John Boulevard in Port Dover. There it is right there.
Thank you. Anything further on this report is for information. The work has been done, the budget's been approved. Most of the work has come in well under budget, except for one. Anything further? Receive as information. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Shelley, for those reports. Any report of council members sitting on committees? I'll move then to bylaws. Excuse me. I have two motions here. Moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that bylaws 7Z 2017 and 11Z 2017, along with 2017-22 through to 2017-25 inclusive, be passed, signed by the Mayor and Clerk, fixed with the corporate seal. Any discussion on those? Councillor Height, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I noticed 2017-22, page 65 of our agendas, $18 million worth of debentures. I'm assuming this comes from the staff report that was sent to us on August 16, 2016. Yes. Is that correct? Now, I did pull that report since there wasn't a staff report that went with this, and it was rather painful because our clerk hasn't brought on our new searching system, but I managed to do it somehow. And at that time, our interest rate was, for our 20 years, were 2.63, and today it's 3.